For the last month or so, I've been doing yearly reflection podcasts with my friends, and this is something I've never done before, but using my SPECCIAL framework has helped me understand the areas of life and therefore be able to reflect on all of the areas of life, not just productivity. Because when I think and look at other people who have made yearly reflection templates, all they focus on is things like how many books have you read? Have you gone to the gym? Have you contributed more at work? Have you upped your skills? All these things that don't actually consider if you're reflecting on your year, if you're reflecting on your whole life in that year, it's not just about productivity. There is so much more to you than just your productivity. The reason why the SPECCIAL framework is so impactful is that the recurring theme that happened when I asked my friends about their achievements for the year, just loosely based off anything that they deemed an achievement, they would give me a list of like 15 things, and that was about it. And when I think about that, there's 52 weeks in a year, and you're telling me that you've only achieved 15 things? It probably doesn't make sense. And the reason is because they're structuring the frame of achievement based on business productivity principles. And business productivity only focuses on productive elements of fulfillment. So when you generate more revenue, when you're more efficient with your work, or if you take a health, wealth, relationships approach, it completely ignores things like creativity, creative expressions that are never going to earn you money, that truly fulfill you or put you in a flow state, or things like experiences, things that you watch, games that you play. The biggest thing I learned about all my friends through this frame of doing these yearly reflections with them by giving them a list to create themselves and then improving it based on the SPECCIAL framework is that they heavily underestimate what an achievement is, because we're talking about the context of business productivity instead of game design. Life game design is the philosophy and set of actionable frameworks to create a fulfilling life. No, this is not cringification. Cringification, what I mean by that is when people try to force life to be a game, in which they try to make these XP bar algorithms to make a skill tree and a leveling system and all that bullshit. No. Life is already so much like a game. We don't need to force it to be one, but we do need to design it like one. And so one of the key elements in game design is an achievement system, is reinforcing all the things that you have done, giving you evidence. One of my favorite quotes from this year from Alex Hormozi is that you need to build an undeniable stack of proof that you are the person who you say you are. But if that undeniable stack of proof is nowhere to be seen, what is the point? Because people, when they have these task managers and project managers, every time they complete a task or a project, they hide it away. Game design would never do that. So while these business productivity techniques are really helpful, using them to structure your life will end up making your life like working for a corporate business instead of playing life like the game it is. So with that said, I want to get into doing my reflection to show you guys how this actually works. So I'll just give you a quick overview of SPECCIAL. Basically, it's a way to organize, understand, and optimize every area of your life. It started off as a space for me to database all the information that I had in my life. And then I realized actually all of these areas of life are areas that we can find fulfillment in. So the most popular life management system that I've seen that is basic and simple and really easy to understand is health, wealth, and relationships, but it completely misses out on so many other areas that have nothing to do with them that are a part of our life. And so what I learned from my chefing career is that whenever you use a simple system, the output that you can get from a simple system will be simplicity. And life is far too complicated to use a simple system with. That's why we need to have the right amount of complexity. So this is the acronym of SPECCIAL. If you're a fan of Fallout, you know exactly where this is coming from. First, I'll break down SPECCIAL into the essential attributes and then the elevating attributes. And when I mean essential and elevating, it's about the level of fulfillment that we can get from either of these categories. The first four are completely essential to human fulfillment, whereas the other four are more elevating of human fulfillment. It's quite akin to the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we'll go through this in order of essential to elevating. And so strength is all about your physical health. And the reason why I've separated it from mental health is because as a database system, there's so much within just pure physical health that you have to manage, and there's so much within your pure mental health that you have to manage, that these two need to be separated. It's not with the intention that there is no link between mental and physical health. That has been proven with modern science time and time again, with the best books like The Body Keeps a Score and When the Body Says No. So contribution is about work and charity, and it's essential because we want to make great contributions to society, but we just have to find the ones that are truly meaningful to us. Attachment is about close relationships, and it's a separation from what you'll see here and experience later between shallow relationships. Attachment is all about close relationships, so it's your romantic interests, it's your closest friends, and it's your family and even companion animals that you have. And then finally, deep diving on LifeForce, which is your mental health and optionally spirituality, if you have that affinity for it. And so most life management systems will tell you these are the areas of life, and that's pretty much it. You can pretty much see you've got health split up into physical and mental, wealth, which I would attribute to getting from work, and then relationships, which would be attachment. But again, the reason why I've had 4 more is because there's literally so much more to life than just your work, just your relationships, just your health. And while, again, these are essential to human fulfillment, once you've ticked these boxes, it goes on to that higher step of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you have these other areas here, which are elevating to human fulfillment, basically. And so persistence is the first one. And this is something that I've literally seen no one actually put into a life bucket. It's all about the persistent maintenance of your lifestyle routines and the environment that you have. So for me, I keep the items that I've bought in this tab and also the maintenance ongoing that I have to keep up with them. Experience is another massive thing that is absolutely ignored within productivity systems and general life reflections. Experience is about literally the experience of life, anything that helps you enjoy it. So that's things like having outer circle friends. Again, it's very different to closer circle friends, but it also includes things like hobbies you have. For me, that's like anime, gaming, and movies, but also things like traveling and going out in nature. It's a plethora of things. And then creativity is about your creative expressions, which are things like art and music or literally anything you create. If you've read or heard the concept of The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, you'll understand that creativity isn't just reserved for the people we call creators in society. Creativity, he describes, is a state of being. Intelligence is the umbrella term of learning, finance, and planning. If you're any part into self-development, you probably heard that money won't buy you happiness, but it's more about what you spend that money on that will grant you more fulfillment. And so that's exactly why I've classed intelligence as an elevating attribute instead of an essential attribute. And one more thing before I get into my own reflection is that I would honestly be so happy to help you do this for yourself. Reflect on your year in 2023 based on the SPECCIAL Framework, based on all the things that I know you're not giving yourself credit for, and helping you expand the list of your achievements to find what has been the most fulfilling memories for you, and seeing if you want to transfer those things into the next year and really elevate the level of fulfillment that you get from all of the achievements that you have made. At the moment, while I'm growing my channel, this template I have here of Life Game Design is completely free to use in the alpha stages of its development before it becomes a paid product next year. So if you want to help me test it out, just hit me up on Instagram over here at Life Game Design, or search Michael Nelson Davis and you'll see me. And yeah, I'd love to do this with more people, because doing it with my friends has just taught me so much about them and has taught me about really what are the most fulfilling things that people find within each different category of life. And that's exactly what I want to review for myself right now. So let's get into it. So you can see this board here where it follows the SPECCIAL Framework, and it has the columns that are color-coded just like this. These are also chronologically ordered and are all the things that I've done. So within Life Game Design, this is something that I've been putting in throughout the year, basically. So these are my projects and what I would also consider memories, because it's not watching a series of anime is not a project. It's basically like a memory that I'm creating. So yeah, it includes every area of life. And so when I come to do this yearly reflection, I don't actually have to create a list. It's already there. So yeah, this is my achievements board. And what I've done is that I've ranked the achievements that I've had. So after this distribution, what I have is this page here, which I've ranked into pretty much like elements. I've got diamond at the top, gold, silver, and the base level is bronze. So at the start of my reflections with my friends, I always ask them literally how they felt about the distribution. And these will be the reflection questions that I've gone. So I guess the first thing to think about is, how did I do compared to last year? I guess to summarize last year, I had a ton of progress, especially in lifting, but not much progress within creativity. I was having the idea of making life game design into something more tangible, but I had no idea how to actually action that until I discovered Notion and building this system with all the databases and all the tools that I'm able to use to organize my life all in one app, because I tried to separate these things between Notion and TickTick, but I figured once I had the database of SPECCIAL, I needed a task manager within it so I didn't have to switch between the two, especially when doing things like this and reviewing my whole year and my whole life in the whole year. And actually, usually in a reflection template like this, I would go on to just list a bunch of words, but I literally have the whole scope of my year on here. So I'm just going to move on to the life game design questions and basically, yeah, how do I feel about the distribution of SPECCIAL in my thing? And honestly, I will have to scroll down to see where it starts tailoring off and see, okay, so it started to clear off in strength. Once I scroll down, attachment is cleared off, LifeForce is cleared off, contribution definitely, because around 3 months ago, I quit my job to pursue this indefinitely. And it just goes on, persistence drops off, and then it's just between experience, creativity, and intelligence. And honestly, that feels about right with what my intention was with this year of my life, because I'm not in a relationship, so there wouldn't be much for attachment apart from family. And I've moved house to New Plymouth, so that means I haven't been able to spend as much time with my inner circle friends. And of my inner circle friends, it's pretty much literally just them in my life. I honestly don't have many outer circle friends, and that's something that I discovered about myself. I actually don't like having a lot of outer circle friends. I'd rather just have deeper relationships with my inner circle friends, basically. And also with the distribution, I'm actually really happy that it was mainly focused on creativity like I wanted to, because man, I've had to do so much work in building this whole Notion template and really articulating all the areas of SPECCIAL and the frameworks that I built to literally design my life like the game it is without having all this cringe bullshit of spreadsheets and oh god, that stuff pisses me off. I'm just wondering if there's anything I wish I had more or less in any of these areas. And honestly, in terms of experience, because there is a lot, I actually don't feel that bad about this being like the key thing, because I've intentionally tried to put in more, because I found that if I just focused on creativity or intelligence, kind of like that hustle mindset, there was a period of about 2 or 3 months where I felt that, and at the end of every week, I just felt this massive emptiness that there was nothing to look forward to in life. And again, it's because I designed my life like a business instead of like a game. And I think that's probably a massive revelation that I had at the start of this year over here, where I finally decided to design my life like a game developer, but at the start, I really didn't understand what that meant, so I couldn't execute well on it, basically. So yeah, I guess I'm actually pretty happy with I'm pretty happy with the actual distribution of how this turned out. And honestly, I don't think I'd change a thing. So now that I'm happy and I've reflected on distribution, this is my favorite part to go over with my friends that I've done this with, and that's the ranking of all of these. So before I recorded this, I took some time to literally go through all of that massive wall of stuff that I've done and actually give them rankings based on how fulfilled those things have made me. And so I guess I'm just going to start from the top down and start with the diamond level achievements that I've had. And this is also in chronological order, so it will tell you a lot about the fluctuations that I've had within the year. So probably one of the first biggest things is that we started the Habit Tracking Kings. This was actually a little bit last year, but we really dialed it in at the start of this year, where it's me over here, and this is Derek, and this is Joseph. And just having that group has probably been one of the most impactful things on my whole year, just because one big thing that we do is that at the start we would send each other messages every day about either what we were doing or the habits that we were working on at a very minimum level. So we all know what each other was going through, and we could all give advice and help us go through those things, or even just acknowledge the fact that we at times were all just struggling and we had no idea what we were doing. I'm going to keep on saying this throughout a lot of these, but again, one of the biggest revelations that I've had this year, and the fact that I never understood what the hell anyone meant by mental health. I could never square the circle of what mental health is. And it felt like mental health was just this cloudy mist that had never been distilled into a framework that I could intuitively understand. Because when I read books about it, there would be people like Mo Gaudat especially, even though his book is amazing, one thing I don't like about the book is that he refers to your mind as a computer program. And the fact is, there is so much about computer programs that I have no idea about. So if I have things that come up within my psyche and I try to intuitively understand it through the lens of looking at it as a computer program, there's only so much I can get out of that, even if I study computer programming itself. And the theme that what I found from listening to an insane amount of podcasts and books in general about life, but more specifically about mental health, is that we will enact the insecurities and the fears of our inner child subconsciously. And then what I learned from practices like journaling and meditation is that we need a mechanism to separate ourselves from the thoughts that we have. Our thoughts are generated regardless of our conscious decision to generate thoughts. And even as I say it now, it still sounds really up in the air, so I'll just say it. The parent-child relationship frame of mental health is that we have the will of a parent, the conscious will of a parent, and the subconscious mind of a child. Your conscious will determines your environment, and your environment determines your behavior. And when you look at it like a relationship, the thing is that you can actually intuit a lot of the things that happen. So one of the biggest things I found was something like imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is when you feel like you are constantly not good enough, even though you are clearly good enough for the level of proficiency that you have within any field of life. And what I found out is that when you teach a child that they are not good enough, when a parent teaches a child that they are not good enough yet, they are not good enough yet, they are not good enough yet, obviously that child will always feel like that. And so subconsciously, our subconscious thoughts are like the thoughts of a child. And the subconscious thoughts will arise from whatever is taught by the parent, our conscious mind. And so the conscious will to make good or bad decisions is like being a good or bad parent. What are the values that you want to teach your child? Because your child will very likely dictate your level of happiness. Because if they are not able to control their emotions, and if you are not able to control your emotions, you'll both be unhappy. But if you are able to provide a space for your child to help them process their emotions, just like our parents do for us when we are children, then even though they experience the full range of emotion, which is normal, they have a support system to help them process that. Over the next year, I'm going to be writing on this to really articulate it and to take it from mist into a very distilled liquid. But after discovering this about the parent-child relationship and trying to read more books, while there isn't a specific book that says it like this, I read a lot of books that had similar kind of tropes that built on my understanding of this system. And then you'll see later on in the year, it actually helped me help my friends with two major problems that they had. And so the next one is directly related to that. It's That Little Voice in Your Head by Mo Gauda. And what that book taught me is, again, he explains the mind to be like a computer program. But I guess it just helped me have a deeper understanding of why the little voice says what it says, and it helped me deepen the understanding of the parent-child relationship. Over here is probably like the first massive experience-wise achievement that I've had, which is watching the whole series of Vinland Saga. And honestly, the story of Vinland Saga is why it was so important to me, because it's a story of a child who loses his father in war and ends up having to live with the person who killed his father. And that person who killed his father actually ends up as a mentor to him throughout the years. And he swears that he wants to kill that mentor. And that mentor puts up with him because he actually ends up using him to achieve conquest of other places. But the whole arc and duality of pretty much becoming the monster that you swore to kill in the first place is the arc that the main character Thorfinn goes through. And there is just so much development of character, and it's just a seriously beautiful modern mythology. I can't believe it's actually been such a crazy year, but a massive, 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 massive thing, especially for me, is that I have eczema, I used to have eczema, I guess, which is a skin condition in which it's hard to explain because there's no actual cure for it, but your skin is just naturally more dry and itchy, and it creates a ongoing loop where you scratch and then the skin breaks and then it gets more cracked and dry, going on and on and on. And I used to have extreme problems with this, especially when I was around primary, intermediate, and high school. And only up until this year, when I really dialed in my strength, when I dialed in how I look after myself in terms of sleep, nutrition, and exercise, did this finally go away to the point where I no longer have to think about it every hour of the day. If you know anyone with eczema, you know how difficult it is, how horrible it is to go through it. While I've seen different people have different results from different methods, the biggest thing for me was getting sleep and switching to a plant-based diet. But yeah, just the fact that I didn't have to worry about it so much honestly just gave me so much peace of mind, because when I think about it, really what eczema did for me is that it just stressed me out very subtly but constantly. And having that kind of always piercing the back of your mind is one of the most horrible experiences. So I'm so glad, honestly, this year that I haven't had to worry about it to an insane degree. The next one over here is Jedi Fallen Order, a modern mythology video that I've done right at the start of this year, because it was a project that I was working on for so long. And yeah, it's the first time I've really leveled up my video editing skills and really poured so much time and effort into a video to tell a story, to share a message. Over here is a really interesting one, because I've only told a few people who I'm really close to about this, but I had an experience where I was listening to a podcast about the concept of infinite intelligence. And the thing is, before I had this experience, I was an extremely pessimistic atheist. I would love to consume the content of people who were absolutely against any sort of spiritual practice or belief at all. I don't know what happened, but I decided to just see the other side of what these people were talking about. And that whole concept of infinite intelligence or universal consciousness or whatever kind of got me interested. So I just decided to listen to it randomly. What happened is that all of a sudden I started uncontrollably crying tears of joy. And the feeling that I got literally reminded me of the warmth that I would feel from the phone calls that I would have with my grandmother on my dad's side. And when that happened, I was just doing something. I wasn't even listening to the podcast very intently. It was kind of like background music in a way. And then that happened, and I literally could not explain what the hell happened. And I guess from my atheistic perspective, I tie it to a connection with my grandmother, who's not here anymore, because I can't explain it. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't even know what to say about it. Because from that experience, it's not like I necessarily believe anything about spirituality, but I guess from having that experience, I'm just so more open to listening and learning more about it. The next massive thing was my first skydiving experience. Derek, who's in the Habit Jacking Kings group, for my birthday, bought me my skydiving experience because I told him I was going to go. I told him I would just do it all by myself. But then he said he wanted to come with. And what ended up happening is that he came, I waited for him. I was supposed to go on the day of my birthday, but I wanted to do it with him. And then all of a sudden he said he would pay for it. And it was really sweet. And honestly, the experience we both shared of literally jumping out of a plane. I mean, none of us are really scared of heights, but just the fact of doing that, going through such an adrenaline rush, was massively insane. I can't even describe it. Moving on to AMP coaching. AMP is a method called Athletics Meets Performance, and it's hosted by a guy called Malik Rivera. And he's a insanely jacked bodybuilder. Let's look up his Instagram. So that is this dude who is insanely jacked as a vegan. And so I worked with him online and honestly made some insane gains with his programming. And that was the first time, like going through that, first time doing actual, getting coached by someone in terms of bodybuilding, because I always just wanted to do it by myself, learn about it by myself and stuff like that. But I wanted to take it to the next level. So I hired a coach. And the things that I did that I never thought I would be able to do in terms of output at the gym, having someone to hold me accountable literally pushed the barrier of what I thought I could handle. And there were days in there where I felt like I died. I remember specifically this one leg day where it was the first time that I almost threw up. It was the first time in a gym session where I was like so close of pushing myself to the point where I almost threw up. And then straight after that on the car ride home, I had like this massive surge of energy and like excitement from it. It was absolutely insane. And I guess just the whole experience and process of going through coaching was just amazing. I think I'd do it again this year, if I can afford it, because at the moment I've quit my job. I'm living off the pocket of the savings that I made for the past 10 years to pursue this seriously. Definitely, if I can find that, I will do it. But I know it's going to be a period where I really have to know how much mental strain it took on me, because going from there, like I said, with the special system, you have the trade-offs of my time and mental energy becomes less for putting it into the other areas of life, like here. And again, massive thing for me was the first time I actually earned money online over here by creating a course. And this was massive because I always felt like my ideas and frameworks that I create were good enough to make money, but I've never, ever had the proof that I could make money from it. And I created a video course for this organization. And yeah, the fact that when I reached out to them, they were keen and offered me that money that I thought I would get. I thought I would only get $250, but I ended up getting 1.25K. So I guess just having the evidence of that really pushed me to be like, okay, I actually have decent value that I can provide people. So if I take this seriously enough, I can create more frameworks that can earn me money. And I guess that was almost like a catalyst that made me want to pursue turning life game design from creativity into contribution, because creativity doesn't include things like side hustles and side businesses, but if it's not actively paying for all of your living costs, then it goes into the category of creativity instead of contribution. So that's exactly what I'm trying to turn life game design into, which is now a creative outlet for me, but I want to turn that into a contribution to provide to society. After that, just quickly going over the Demon Slayer arc of season 3, which I watched in August. Absolutely insane. Honestly, the music from that series I use in the gym so much, because I guess all of the emotion that's kind of tied to the series and the fights they have just like pumps me up for the gym so much. So I always I've got a playlist of stuff that I listen to that's mostly from anime, just because of the hype, just because the pure hype of it, which is mad. And actually from Vinland Saga, going on to this one here, basically my theme song for 2023 is a song called Your Head by Survive Said the Prophet. I won't go into too much detail, but I just found a song that resonated with this period of my life so goddamn well. And it really hit me. I've listened to this song so many times. And yeah, I guess moving on, building on the fact that I had this experience, either from my grandma, or interpreting it as being my grandma, I decided to dive into more spirituality. I wanted to understand what the hell is spirituality in the first place, and what I always thought is that any result from a spiritual practice is the result of the placebo. And so I wanted to learn more about the placebo, and Dr. Joe Dispenza has the best book on the placebo effect. And this absolutely changed my perspective on how I see spiritual practices and my appreciation for them as well, and actually using them to heal an injury that I've had for about 1.5 years. So honestly, if you're extremely skeptical, maybe pessimistic about this whole thing, and probably an atheist like I am, I guess I'm still, maybe I've shifted from being agnostic. I guess I've shifted to becoming agnostic instead of an atheist. Whereas if you're agnostic, you don't necessarily believe it 100%, but you're not shy to the idea that maybe there is something behind this. And so once I finished that book, that led on to a lot of healing. I had carpal tunnel syndrome, which is like a numbness that you feel in your hands when you wake up in the morning in periods of time, that I was dealing for about 1.5 years. And it completely prevented me from doing more in the gym, and I hated it because I got to a point where I would love to go to the gym every day, and now it was at the point where I had to force myself not to go, and it just sucked. It sucks so much. So yeah, doing the protocols within the book, I healed both my carpal tunnel syndrome and I healed my tennis elbow that I'd been dealing with, both for around, especially the carpal tunnel was about for 1.5 years, and the tennis elbow was about 1 year. And having those two things eradicated just let me do so much more. I do have one more though. There is still one more injury that's lingering, and that's a recurring shoulder injury because I have weak stabilizing muscles around my rotator cuff, I believe. So that's definitely something to work on for next year. And again, another massive thing that happened this year was deciding to move to New Plymouth with my parents. So I used to live in Auckland, New Zealand. I've lived there my whole life with my parents, and there was a pivot where they wanted to move down to New Plymouth to get a new house to semi-retire on. And I was thinking of staying up in Auckland, but that would mean that I would have to work more to find a flat and all those kind of things. And I realized this was at the time before I quit my job to pursue trying to make a life game design into a creativity outlet, into a contribution. That was the catalyst of quitting my job and being like, you know what? I'm going to live below my means to pursue this relentlessly, because this is finally the thing that I am so passionate about, that I have finally attained a clarity on, and I want to share it with as many people as I possibly can, because I know how much it's changed my life, and I want to help people get that same thing, because I know there is probably someone out there who was struggling as much as I was by not being able to articulate the areas of life, by not having a system to do all the stuff and give themselves the credit for all the things that they've done. So yeah, that decision, I think it took me around 2 months, but it was really hard. I had to ask a lot of people, I had to do a lot of journaling. I would never have imagined that I would be so content in this place. New Plymouth is a coastal city. It's nowhere near as big as Auckland, but it's not such a small town that you would say that you're in the middle of nowhere. The balance for me is just right. Yeah, like I said, I never would have imagined. I'm just so happy that I guess I have the privilege to be here. Another massive thing is these beads right over here that were gifted to me by Derek from the Habit Tracking Kings group. Yeah, when I got these, because he knows I love these kind of things so much, he got it for me while he was on holiday. And it just meant so much to me because he's someone that I look up to. It's a constant reminder of me to basically be like him, to make decisions as if I were him, as if he were looking at what I was doing. The dynamic of helping each other with our problems has been, again, like the biggest impact on my life this year. And expanding on the parent-child relationship, I helped, again, 2 of my friends deal with really huge problems within their relationships and within their mental health. I'll talk about this very abstractly. Basically, the expectations that they gave their inner child were so high that the child was literally screaming out. And I actually did this to myself, not to that extent, but in a way where before I was able to really articulate the special framework in here and actually have a system to organize every area of life, I felt like I was literally wasting all my time. I did feel like a sense of worthlessness to the people around me because I couldn't give them the value that I wanted to, but I would never teach that trope to a child. And so I had to reset my expectation of understanding exactly where I'm at and building from there instead of trying to expect top level while completely disregarding where I'm at. And so it kind of builds on that trope that the only competition you have is with you. Moving along, around October, I finally designed the MVP for, I guess, the project management side of life game design, because while this is a space for you to organize your whole life within databases and things like that, I needed a project manager. So I built this like a project manager, almost very similar to TickTick in the way that you have these tabs here, overdue yesterday, tomorrow, this week, Then you have what I would provide, which is unique to this, which is the season views. And the seasons are basically quarters. And then you can see your progress throughout your whole life broken down into segments. And then you've got a bunch of other views to help you process all the information that you have throughout your life within all of these different areas, projects, tasks, and notes. So yeah, around October, I finally finished the MVP of that, and it was massive. And also around that time, I finally finished my Invisalign because I didn't have the worst teeth before, but it still bugged me a little bit. I don't remember if I took any photos of what it was before because I want to make so much content on YouTube now. I actually felt really insecure about how my teeth looked before. Having finished the Invisalign, like it was at least over $5,000. It is the best money I have ever spent. And again, massive thing. Massive thing is that I completed the special acronym. So over here, I spell the special acronym with 2 C's, so it makes up 8 instead of 7 letters. That's because I divided creativity and contribution. Before this, I had special written with 7 letters, and A actually was a placeholder. A before wasn't attachment, it was just called achievements. And I knew that it didn't make sense to call it achievements because you can have achievements within each of these areas. So it didn't really make sense. And I was using it. I knew it would be something, and it was just a placeholder at the time. And I actually got the idea to call it attachment from the book Attached by Amir Levine, where he teaches us about the attachment styles. And so literally just completing it after, like, honestly, I've been working on trying to figure out and really distill the areas of life from that mist into a fine liquid gold for the last 5 years. The last 5 years, I've tried to find a system to do this. No one had it, so I had to make it myself. And I had no idea what I was doing until now, until all the books that I've read, all the podcasts that I've listened to about literally all the different areas of life. I was finally able to complete it and build this whole system on top of it. That was another massive catalyst into me really pursuing the whole philosophy and framework of life game design. And that was actually built on top of what happened and confronting what I call my emotional shrapnel. So when I read this book called Attached, I literally had a panic attack because I had a realization about how I viewed a past experience that was not traumatic in the sense of what you would think of a traumatic experience, but the way that I viewed it was traumatic. It's the story I told myself about it. And so when I had that realization from reading the book, I had to call my friend Derek straight away and be like, dude, I'm having a panic attack right now. I don't know what the fuck to do. I just need you to help me understand my thoughts. And it was probably the biggest emotional pain that I've had in the last year, but also probably the last 2 years. And just going through that whole process of dealing with it, and it's still something that I have to deal with because I haven't made a full resolution on this at all. From taking it to an underlying thing that has been undermining my actions, I guess unearthing it has been an insane process. The reason why I called it emotional shrapnel is because when I was trying to articulate what was going on in my head and why I felt so much pain, is that I felt like it was having shrapnel in my heart, like almost like a Tony Stark scenario where there's shrapnel embedded in my heart, and understanding that the process of taking it out, while that's good in the long run, is so painful. It's almost like I would rather keep it in there knowing it's going to hurt me instead of trying to pull out the shrapnel. I eventually got over how impactful it was, and I guess now, and especially for next year, I have to learn how to deal with that story of what happened and what I tell myself about that story. So this is definitely going to be something that pops up for me next year, something I want to work on next year. And I have put a big step into doing that by Andrew Huberman's protocol, what he calls trauma journaling. And the reason why I put a picture of Kratos is because it kind of reminds me of this heavy weight that I was holding on to that I didn't really know about. And it's kind of like I felt a relation between that scene where he finally has nothing to hide. And while he still has to work with the pain of his past, he doesn't have to suppress it anymore. So yeah, again, another insane, massive thing that happened this year that was really hard to go through because it was something that I could not deal with myself. I had to get my mom to help me with it. I had to get my friend Derek to help me with it. That was a hell of an experience if I'll say anything about that. After that, sitting in the mud. Sitting in the mud is a term by Simon Sinek in which there are times where obviously you can help someone, give them advice and such, but there are also times where you just literally have to sit in the mud with them. It's like, he gives the analogy that your friend is stuck in the mud, and it's not the fact that you want to get a rope to help pull them out. It's the fact that they just literally need to sit in the mud, and they need you to sit in the mud with them. And I was able to give that to my friend. They really appreciated it. It really helped them. And then, oh my God, I actually, honestly, just the amount of time that I've spent on all of these diamond level achievements that I've ranked is insane because I've got so much more. I don't think I'll go into as much detail with the other ones. While what I've done this year isn't as impressive as a lot of other people, it's the fact that I'm giving myself credit for it. Like my friend Derek, he's done so much more than me this year. But the biggest thing that I found sad is that he didn't give himself credit for that. And that's why I wanted to do the end of year podcast with him in the first place, because I knew he wasn't giving himself credit for all the amazing things that he's done. And I wanted to learn more about all the things that he's done. And so, yeah, another massive thing for me was Lachlan, my friend who was helping me test out life game design. So he's been testing out pretty much this template that I use that I built in Notion that's at the moment, while I'm growing my channel, free for people who want to test out the framework. And yeah, he absolutely loved it and started like nerding out about it. Basically, he made this his own thing over here where he has his own page of organizing all of the creative things in his life. Honestly, it just made me so happy that he got joy out of something I created. A thing that I really miss from my time as a chef, where when I make food that people love and they come and tell me and they appreciate it, it makes me so happy. And that's a big reason why I loved cooking in the first place. But I never got that from things like the frameworks I created. And this was the first piece of evidence that I was able to help someone and make them happy by doing something that makes me happy in general, by making these frameworks and doing all these things here. And I guess building on creating the MVP of it, because I'm trying to turn this into a product I want to sell. $100 million Offers by Alex Hormozi is the absolute cornerstone book of intelligence and finance. When I say cornerstone books, out of all of these areas that you'll see soon in a video where I deep dive into the SPECCIAL Framework that is coming out next year, I have created a list of what I call cornerstone books. The cornerstone books are books that serve as the complete guide to each of these areas of life. And because there's so many areas within these attributes of life. So something like strength includes sleep, nutrition, exercise. I have created a list of books that teaches you about those individual things, because I think the most overwhelming thing about self-development is that there's so many things you need to learn about life. And there's no way to understand in what order you should learn them, but also how to categorize those learnings. And so, yeah, especially for intelligence, the cornerstone books for intelligence within finance is literally Alex Hormozi's $100 million series. And if you know anything about Alex Hormozi, you will understand exactly why. After Lachlan made me like happy to the point of tears, I didn't mention this when I was talking about it, but we were in a call and I was like literally like happy to the point of tears that he was using what I built. Like someone else was using the system that I was building and he was as hype about it as I was, basically, if not more. And I was like, holy shit, that's insane. And so what he did, because he's an artist, is that he drafted the first design concept of the logo that I use now. That turned into this. At the start, it looked like this over here. And I really loved it with the way that he incorporated the letters of L, G, and D in the logo in the shape of a game controller. That was some pure talent, man. That was beautiful. And the next one, this is my best friend Derek from high school. Something that I had a misconception about with friendship, and especially close, deep friendships and relationships, is that there shouldn't be any effort within maintaining that relationship. I don't know why I had that idea, but it is a limiting belief that I carried. And I was doing these calls with my brother-in-law where we'd catch up every month and discuss how I was going with life game design to try and keep me accountable to really producing something from it. I realized, why am I not doing this with my best friend? The last time I called my best friend was like probably more than 6 months ago. And that really sucked, because it felt like we were growing apart, even though none of us wanted it. It sounds silly now, but I worked up the courage to be like, yo, can we schedule a call like every month to have? And he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to. And I guess the misconception was that I thought he was too busy and he thought I was too busy to even want to do it in the first place. And just by going through the difficult notion of communicating how you feel about someone close to you, we cleared that. And that first catch-up call we had was just, it's everything I wanted out of our relationship. And yeah, it just felt like we were back in high school, just chatting away, talking a little bit of shit, talking about our aspirations, talking about life in general. I mentioned before that I had like a little bit of burnout. Even though this is something I'm very passionate about, working on life game design, I did have the burnout of the fact that I didn't incorporate attachment into my life much. I didn't incorporate experience into my life much. Balancing the bored of having everything in just creativity made me feel like I was just doing this grind alone in that whole monk mode thing. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And I knew it didn't have to be that hard. I literally gave myself the peace of deciding to take time to do this, because before I would have thought, no, I spent like 3 hours talking to Derek And before I would have thought, in that 3 hours, I can get so much work done. Why would I even bother kind of thing? And that was, I guess, my fault from really taking the hustle mindset way too seriously. My own fault for doing that. Again, that mindset shift of going from treating your life like a corporate business to treating it like a game. And building on that, again, I watched the series Black Clover this year, which I've been sleeping on for ages, but it is absolutely insane. It is insane, and I love it so much. I won't go into much detail because I want to move on to this, The Creative Act. This is the cornerstone book of creativity, one of them, one of many, but it was the most impactful of all of them, I felt. An amazing book that just literally teaches you everything about creativity. And because Rick Rubin himself is quite spiritual, it kind of built on my understanding and appreciation for spirituality. Another book that has had a massive impact on me this year is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I mean, just like in the diagram here, I felt my life was this tangled mess. And then I finally learned to appreciate the fact that I need to apply essentialism. It taught me about how that relates to essentialism within this framework of special, in the fact that over here, you have a limited amount of time and energy to put into all the different areas of life. So these arrows represent your focus on all these different areas of life. And instead, the thing to do is to just choose some core areas and focus, put all your chips on the board for those things. Because, I explained this here, it's like learning a new skill. So when you learn a new skill, the default baseline of the effort it takes to improve that skill is very low. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get to a higher baseline. But the thing is, once you get that baseline improved, the maintenance of that new baseline, which was up here, is now here, and it only takes a little bit to maintain it. To actually put this into a tangible example, it's like riding a bike. When you first learn how to ride a bike, you have to try for months to nail it. But once you do, after that, you barely have to put any effort into maintaining that new skill. And so it's the same with the different skills that we learn in different areas of life. If we make the mistake of focusing on all areas of life, we only see marginal improvements in all of those areas. And we only marginally improve our baselines from the default here. So with the concept of essentialism and understanding that it's really easy to keep things at baseline levels, what you can do is just focus on a few things and drastically improve their baselines. And for me, it's been definitely strength over here, intelligence through reading an insane amount of books this year, and for me here, creativity. And it could look different for you. Who knows? It's about knowing where you are in life. And that's what the special system is for. It's not for me to say, oh, you need to focus on creativity because I'm focusing on creativity. No, it's about understanding what period of life you're in and what that means in terms of the trade-offs you're going to make within focusing on different areas of life. The next one was the end of year podcasts. I actually should have put all of them in here, but I guess it's too late for that. But massive one, I met Eden for the first time. I think he's around 21 or 22. I'm 26. I met him off a mutual friend, and he's really into self-development, and he's just an awesome dude. He's someone who, as a 21-year-old, I was surprised with the mentality he had around self-development in general. And I know that he's going to make some massive moves next year. And just doing the podcast with him, he's extremely open and willing to be vulnerable. And therefore, we had an amazing conversation that I literally had to do twice. Over here at Says Times 2, because we had a really quick podcast and we were in a bit of a rush. It was about an hour. And then I was like, dude, we have to do this again. So I invited him over again. And yeah, it was just an insane, really good conversation. Going through all of his achievements through the year in this fashion. And yeah, it really taught me about him and what his affinities were. God, we're almost at the end of the diamond achievements. This over here, batch filming general, gym B-roll with my friend Lachlan that I mentioned, who's using the Life Game Design system. I asked him to help me film a bunch of B-roll for the gym just for like things I could use in videos, and I really appreciated it. He did like such an amazing job of like capturing all of my workouts, because what I did is that I took him through my full push-pull legs program in one day. So he literally spent like 4 hours in the gym, and I really pushed him hard that morning. That morning, I made him follow my routine of going for a run, doing a cold shower, and then going straight to the gym and all that stuff. And he kept up so well. He's really fit. I imagine that obviously if you're just going to jump into doing a push-pull legs program all in one day, from doing things like calisthenics, it would be really hard. The next one was the yoga loft with both Lachlan and Derek. Yoga is I guess from that whole like before this experience where it's like where I was a bodybuilder, extremely pessimistic atheist, all of that laid onto each other. My idea of yoga was just the worst. It's like, why the fuck are you doing that stupid shit? You don't need to do that. Like, you know what? Maybe I should try this out. Maybe I'll give it a chance. Because I heard a lot of people raving about it, whether it's friends, different creators, and things like that. Just a wide circle of influence saying all these good things about yoga. And when I finally got into it, my God, I loved it so much. The first session I did, I felt like I was high. Once I got out of the studio, my body was so insanely relaxed, even though we spent almost the whole hour doing these really intense stretches where there's like these ladies who are like 35 plus and they're chilling in these positions, and my legs are shaking, man. I'm struggling, and it truly humbled me. But yeah, just the experience of doing that. And then we met these two called Grace and Florence. So there's a place called the Yoga Loft where you do yoga, and then after that you're treated to a buffet. And yeah, you just eat with the people who are there. And we just had a really awesome conversation with everyone, in the fact that we were talking about the concept of life game design in different areas of life, and there was some stuff that they disagreed with, and I was so happy because this is something that I've found within podcasts that I've listened to this year. I hate podcasts where it's just an echo chamber, where they just agree with everything each other says, and it's not a real conversation. A real conversation is when you talk about the things you disagree with. And I remember coming out of that conversation, like literally being so energized, because there were things that we could talk about, the nuance of why we disagreed with each other and all those kind of things. And it was really exciting to share different perspectives on life, basically. And then after that, which has just happened very recently, the final house move. It was such a mission, moving all of our stuff into quite a big house into quite a smaller house. I kind of already talked about this a lot in my weekly reflections live streams, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but yeah, there was a lot we learned from this. But yeah, another massive thing that happened after we came here is that I got back into surfing. Because I grew up in Piha in Auckland, surfing was just really rough, but down here in New Plymouth, it's a lot less aggressive in trying to kill you. And more like the idea of what I thought surfing was in the first place, which is a bit more relaxing with that kick of adrenaline. And that's exactly what it felt like. I had so much fun. Yeah, it was the first time in 11 years that I decided to go surfing, because my dad is a surfer. He fixes surfboards for a living, so he's super into it. But yeah, 11 years ago, I kind of quit it. But yeah, I was just so happy that it was a way for us to connect and yeah, share the experience and understand why my dad loves it so much. I really understood why my dad loves it so much once I really gave it a good try and got into it myself. The final diamond achievement this year is the chain of live streams that I did. So I can't remember where it was around, but I figured that weekly reflections in general for me just gave me so much clarity and so much purpose and so much fulfillment in general that I knew I had to do them every single week, but I needed something to keep me accountable to doing it every single week. And so I created the live stream format where I would live stream me doing my weekly reflection in my Notion template. And I guess just the fact that it was live stream just helped me so accountable to doing it every single week. Yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to continue moving on for the next year. So man, I spent a lot of time just on these. And to be honest, generally when I did my end of year podcast reflections with my friends, we mainly just focused on these massive diamond achievements because these are literally like the biggest highlights of the year for me. So for the rest, I'm just kind of gonna skim over them and see if anything like really pops out. A 3-day fast, being a well, not like a pro bodybuilder, but like, having bodybuilding as a hobby, I've always loved eating and I always hated the idea of fasting. And it's not until I watched a lot of podcasts from the Diary of a CEO where he was learning about fasting and brought on a lot of experts and guests in that space where I understood the benefits of fasting and especially a 3-day fast. And so I did it for the first time and it was hell. It was hell, but I'm so proud of the fact that I actually was able to get through it. Man, it was an insane experience. I think I'll do one at least every year. So definitely next year I'll be doing one. But yeah, it was hard. But I guess I'm so proud of the fact that I went through that hard thing that I would never imagine myself doing at all. So I guess it's expanded the horizon of what I think is possible in the first place. Broken that kind of glass ceiling. End of year podcast with Folla. I'm putting that in diamond. Honestly, like all of the end of year podcasts are in diamond, but I didn't have time to actually put them in that category. So, and laughing till I can't breathe with mom. That is a gold achievement that happened recently when we were moving all the stuff, because while we were moving all of the unpacking all the boxes and stuff, we got really stressed out. We were arguing with each other, but there was this one day where I can't remember what she was doing, but my mom was doing something like kind of weird, and I just laughed at it, and I literally laughed at the point where I couldn't breathe. It was insane. The reason why it's so impactful for me is because I literally can't remember if it's been a year or 2 or 3 since I've literally laughed at the point where I'm like almost scared because I think I'm gonna die from laughter. And I guess that ties into building a deeper relationship with my mom. This one over here was something that I discovered around the start of the year, where I discovered what the meaning of life meant to me, because I actually didn't. There's this whole like meaning of life with things like ikigai and stuff like that, and it didn't really make much sense to me. But I don't know if anyone actually said this in a podcast, but it's just a realization that came over me where I was contemplating like, let's really try and think about what is the meaning of life, or what is life itself. If life is something like biological matter, aren't we life? And so if we ourselves are life, the meaning of life is literally whatever we find meaning in. Literally, my meaning of life is to find the things that are meaningful to me, and for other people to find meaningful things for them, because that's the thing. We are all so different, so that our meanings of life will never be the same, because what's meaningful to me will never be meaningful to you in the same way. Yeah, that was just a really nice little realization that I had. Yeah, it really helped me articulate what that whole phrase of the meaning of life meant to me. Moving on to the silver achievements. This PC over here, oh my god, don't break it. I didn't build it from scratch, but I chose all the components for it. I designed it. Very well in theme with life game design. Yeah, it's literally my dream PC. It's because I decided to really pursue video editing and like doing content creation full time. I was like, you know what? This is something I'm going to spend so much time on. So I want to spend my money where my focus should be. It was awesome, but at the same time, when I got my dream PC, I was like, actually, this is a silver achievement. This is my dream PC, but it's not as impactful as any one of these other memories. It's not as impactful as this that probably costs like what, $20-$30, whereas the PC costs I think like 6 or 7k, maybe more, I can't remember. Just taught me a lot about the SPECCIAL framework in general, where this is something to do with attachment, which is an essential attribute, and this is something to do with either intelligence or persistence, which is an elevating attribute. And it just reinforced my understanding of the level of fulfillment that we can get from different areas of life. I guess another big thing around silver is that I understood that I needed to cut off bad friendships. So it was mainly due to outer circle friends that I had that weren't the best influences on me. And I finally decided, like, you know what, I'm not going to put any energy at all into trying to maintain this, even if they said like, you know what, oh, let's hang out sometime or whatever. And I tried to be nice, I tried to be nice and be like, oh yeah, we should, but I didn't actually want to. And I finally decided to come out and just be like, look, I don't feel like I want to spend time with you. I didn't say that. I guess I said that without saying it in a very horrible way. I just very clearly stated my intention. Spending time with them, doing whatever they wanted to do, I can't even remember now, just wasn't aligned with the goals that I had for this year. Yeah, a few awesome books that I've read in this level are Cyber-Psychonetics by Maxwell Maltz and definitely The Diary of a CEO. Really amazing books in themselves. And I've read this before, but I reread it. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, absolute classic, and this is a cornerstone book within LifeForce. Okay, actually, this is a big one here. Attack on Titan, the last episode. So I watched this when I was in high school. So I have like the literal 10-year phase of watching something come to its completion. That was absolutely insane. It was absolutely insane. An arc of, being a fan of something and seeing it come to a close after 10 years is just mad. It's just mad. I didn't really... I remember when I was watching it, I was shouting and stuff holy shit, oh my god. It was just really cool to be, I guess, a part of a literal generation of people who grew up with this and saw it come to an end. And then another one is to retire from work that is not deeply meaningful, but this is temporary. This is about, leaving my job to pursue life game design full time. And again, I thought this is something that's hit me in the theme of these silver things, is that I thought the fulfillment that I would get and the way that I would rank this would be way higher. I thought this would be a diamond thing. But honestly, I wouldn't mind picking up a job again, working 3 days a week, because I realized that it hasn't made me an insane amount happier. And it really surprised me that it wasn't this moment of oh my god, I finally got to quit my job and I don't have to work for anyone, I can just work for myself, Yeah, it's that classic story of I guess the expectation that I had. Yeah, actually that's about it. That's the wrap of my whole year that I've had. Man, that was long, but it has been a long and crazy year. It has been a long and crazy year. But like I said, if this is something that you'd like to do yourself, I would love to give you the template for this, because I have a free version of this that is a lot more easier than having the whole system. And so I'm going to do a quick realignment now, but I will do this far more in depth around next week, where I do a full breakdown of what I want to achieve in 2024, but let's just do a quick realignment. What can I do to improve? Let me voice type this thing. I think improving on from this year will mean being more intentional with my time, and especially the people that I decide to spend time with. What have I learned from the bad and the good? From the bad, it's probably going on to that fact that I need to be more intentional with my time and the people, is that if I spend my time badly or with not bad people, but people who are bad for the goals that I have, then nothing is good. And so the good part is, I guess I just learned the lesson that I need to follow that whole meaning of life and find the things that are meaningful to me, because by doing that, I am going to naturally want to create more experiences within those things. And if they are truly intrinsically worthwhile and fulfilling to me, then I won't have to do things like apply an insane amount of discipline, and I will be able to push through the barriers, just like I did within games, which I found really hard, but I felt it was enjoyable to go through the process of completing them. If I don't improve, honestly, in terms of creativity, in terms of life game design as a channel and a brand and an idea, a set of philosophy and frameworks, if I stay the same, I won't make as much progress as I want to in the next year, because I've produced a little bit of stuff. I was going to say I produce a decent amount of stuff, but I haven't. But I know that if I go at the rate that I've been going on, it won't become as large as a movement as I want it to be in this next year. I want to make this something that everyone understands at a very basic level. I want to do away with two major concepts. The concepts that health, wealth, and relationships are the only areas in life, and the concept that you have to structure and build your life like a corporate business instead of like a game. And so if I improve, really what I want to do is help people help themselves. If I improve, I will be able to help so many people help themselves with this philosophy, with these set of frameworks. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to wrap up the whole of 2023. So I'll just show you the template of where you can do this for free for yourself without having to have my full system of, all your projects and tasks and notes. This is a free version of what I think are the two best features of life game design, which is literally having a space to put all of your achievements in within all the areas of life, and having them as reinforcement and proof, that undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are with the achievements list. And so this is the template that I've been using for my friends because, going through this whole thing, I understand is like, whoa, that's a lot. But again, life, there's a lot to life. So yeah, this is an example of my brother-in-law Foller's one and how he filled it out. And because we just did it for the podcast, he didn't have all the pictures and stuff, but it's still nice to see it in the list form, especially with the ranking and especially in seeing the distribution here. In this one, he started with 8 things, and some of these categories were completely empty. And we took those 8 things and we expanded it into about 53. So yeah, even if you don't use the system, it would just mean so much to me if you gave yourself the credit for all the things that you've done this year. Really give yourself credit for that. So yeah, that's it here. I'll be linking the template for this in the description below, where you can just add something here. You can type it in, in your achievements into all these different areas. And if you make a mistake, you can switch it out. And then by the end, once you've made all these things, then you can come to the achievements tier list and they'll automatically be in bronze. And then you can rank them depending on how fulfilling they were to you. So yeah, that's it. That was literally my whole year of 2023. Oh my God, I have been talking for a long time. But I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I went through and took the time to reflect on this crazy year. I am so hungry. I'm going to eat. And let's call it. I'm so hungry. I'm going to eat. But what I wish for you is that you design yourself a nice day.